There is a moment right before something ends. You don't see it happening, you feel it. A door that used to feel open now feels heavy. A room you used to love now feels too quiet. A version of you that used to fit no longer does. Maybe you felt it last night, lying awake, staring at nothing. Maybe you felt it this morning, in the 2 seconds before you opened your eyes, when your body already knew something your mind hadn't said out loud yet. You are not here by accident. Something in you has been shifting, quietly, slowly, almost too slowly to notice, until tonight. Because tonight, under a sky that is about to hold a full moon, we are going to talk about the 7 signs that your old life is ending. Not dramatically, not with fire and collapse, but the way most real endings happen, softly, from the inside out. And the 7th sign, the last one, is different from the others. It's the one most people already know, deep down, but haven't said out loud. Not to their friends, not to their therapist, not even to themselves in the mirror. Stay with me until the end, because if you recognize even 3 of these signs tonight, something in you is already changing. You just haven't given it permission to be real yet. Let's begin. The full moon has always meant something to people. Long before science, long before calendars, long before we had language for what we were feeling. It became a symbol, not a scientific force, not a guarantee of destiny, but a mirror. A moment when things that were hidden in the dark half of the month suddenly become visible. Symbolically, the full moon represents completion, illumination, the point where something that has been quietly building finally becomes impossible to ignore. We are not here tonight to tell you the moon controls your life. It doesn't. You do. But maybe, just maybe, the timing of this video finding you right now is not entirely random. Maybe some part of you has been circling the same feeling for weeks, and maybe tonight is simply the night you finally let yourself look directly at it. So consider this a checkpoint, a reflection point, a moment to ask yourself one honest question. Is my old life ending, and am I the one standing in the way of it? Let's look at the signs. There's a strange kind of grief that nobody prepares you for, the grief of outgrowing yourself. You look at old photos and you don't recognize the person in them, not because you look different, because you feel different. The things that used to matter to that version of you, the goals, the opinions, the way they handled conflict, the way they loved, feel like they belonged to someone else. Someone you used to know, someone you used to be. This is one of the clearest signs that an old chapter is closing. Psychologists call this identity shift. It happens when your internal sense of self grows faster than your external circumstances. Your values change before your habits do. Your priorities shift before your schedule catches up. And for a while, you live in an uncomfortable in-between, where you no longer believe in your old life, but you haven't fully stepped into the new one yet. This discomfort is not a sign that something is wrong with you. It's a sign that you are becoming someone your old life was never built to hold. Many people experience this most intensely in quiet moments. Driving alone, lying in bed, standing in the shower letting the water run longer than necessary. Because in silence, the truth gets louder. Ask yourself honestly, when was the last time you felt fully like yourself in your current life? Not performing, not adjusting, not shrinking to fit an old identity. Just yourself. If you're struggling to answer that, you already have your answer. But there is something deeper here, and it connects directly to the next sign, Because when your identity shifts, everything you once loved shifts with it. Think about something that used to light you up. A hobby, a routine, a relationship dynamic, a version of success you used to chase relentlessly. Now try to feel that same excitement. If it feels distant, muted, almost like watching your own enthusiasm through frosted glass, that's not boredom. That's evolution. There is a difference between boredom and genuine transformation, and it matters that we separate the two. Boredom is temporary. It's restlessness. It usually wants stimulation, distraction, something new to fill the same old shape. But what you might be feeling is different. It's not that you want more of the same thing. It's that the same thing no longer fits who you are becoming. The shape has changed. No amount of stimulation will make an outdated life feel exciting again. This is often the hardest sign to accept, because our culture tells us that losing interest means something is broken. That if a job, a routine, or even a relationship used to make us happy and now it doesn't, we must be ungrateful, or lazy, or afraid of commitment. But sometimes the truth is simpler and far less dramatic. You have changed, and your old life hasn't changed with you. This emptiness is not punishment. It's space. Space being cleared quietly for something that actually fits who you are now. And this is where it gets interesting. Because this same pattern doesn't only show up in what you do, it shows up in who you're around. This is often the sign people resist the most, because it feels the most personal. It's easier to accept that you've outgrown a hobby than to accept that you might be outgrowing a friendship, a social circle, or even the emotional shape of a long relationship. But listen carefully. Outgrowing someone does not mean you stop loving them. It doesn't mean the relationship failed. It doesn't mean the years were wasted. Growth is not a betrayal of the past. Sometimes two people simply grow in different directions, at different speeds, toward different versions of themselves. And the loving, honest thing to do is not to force the old dynamic to keep working. It's to acknowledge that something has shifted, and to set boundaries that reflect who you are now, not who you used to be. Many people confuse boundaries with rejection. They're not the same thing. A boundary is not a wall built out of resentment. It's a doorway you're finally allowed to close, gently, because staying open to everything and everyone was costing you your own peace. You might notice certain conversations exhaust you more than they used to. Certain environments feel heavier. Certain people who once felt like home now feel like a version of home you no longer live in. This doesn't mean you have to cut everyone off tonight. It means you get to ask yourself a harder, more honest question. Am I still in this relationship, this friend group, this environment, because it truly fits who I am now? Or because I'm afraid of what it means to let it go? Sit with that question. Don't answer it too quickly. Because here's what most people miss. Letting go isn't always dramatic. Sometimes it's just quietly stepping back and allowing space between you and something that no longer matches your frequency. And when that space opens up, something else starts happening. You start feeling pulled towards something new. Have you noticed a strange, quiet pull lately? Toward a place you've never been, a skill you've never tried, a version of your life you haven't dared to imagine out loud. This pull is not random. When an old chapter is ending, your inner world begins reorganizing itself around a new center of gravity, even before your outer world catches up. You might feel drawn to learn something completely unrelated to your current path. You might feel an unexplainable curiosity about a city, a career, a creative outlet, a way of living you've never experienced. This is your intuition speaking, not as a supernatural force predicting your future, but as an internal compass built from everything you've lived, learned, and quietly longed for. But here's the distinction that matters most. There's a difference between authentic growth and impulsive escape. Impulsive escape wants to run away from discomfort. It's reactive. It often shows up suddenly, urgently, demanding immediate action. Quit the job today. Leave the relationship tonight. Disappear completely. Authentic growth is quieter. It doesn't demand escape. It invites exploration. It says, just look this direction for a while, rather than burn everything down immediately. If you're feeling pulled towards something new, don't panic and don't force it. Just notice it. Write it down. Let it exist without needing to justify it to anyone yet, not even yourself. Because this pull is often the first quiet signal of the next chapter, long before you're ready to call it by name. There is one question you need to ask yourself here. If fear wasn't part of the equation, what would I already be moving toward? Hold on to your answer. We'll come back to it. Here's something strange that tends to happen right before real change. The past comes back. Old memories resurface out of nowhere. A person you haven't thought about in years crosses your mind. A situation you thought you'd processed shows up again, uninvited, demanding another look. Many people panic when this happens. They assume it means they're regressing, that they haven't healed, that they're stuck repeating the same patterns. But often, it means the opposite. The past doesn't return to trap you. It returns because you're finally emotionally capable of seeing it clearly. Earlier versions of you didn't have the awareness, the distance, or the healing required to fully understand certain moments. Now you do. So your mind brings them back, not to relive them, but to release them properly this time. This is where old emotional patterns get exposed. That relationship that ended badly. That mistake you keep replaying. That version of yourself you're still, quietly, a little ashamed of. When these memories return with less pain and more clarity, that's not coincidence. That's growth revealing itself. Consider whether some of what you're feeling lately isn't new pain at all, but old pain, finally being seen with new eyes. This is one of the quiet gifts of transformation. You don't just move forward, you go back gently, and you finish what was left unfinished. And once that happens, something shifts in how you want to spend your time. If there's one word you'd use right now to describe what you feel ready to release, an old identity, a relationship, a fear, a version of yourself, type it in the comments. Just one word. Sometimes naming it is the first step to releasing it. And if this video is already resonating with you, consider staying close to this channel. We explore these reflections together, regularly, for people quietly rebuilding their lives from the inside out. There's a shift that happens in people who are quietly transforming. They start needing less noise, less scrolling, less small talk, less performing for an audience, even a small one. You may notice you're drawn to solitude in a way that feels less like isolation and more like relief. This isn't withdrawal from life, it's withdrawal from distraction. For years, many of us fill our silence with noise because silence forces us to hear our own thoughts, and sometimes our own thoughts are the last voice we want to listen to. But when you're on the edge of real change, silence stops feeling threatening. It starts feeling necessary. You may find yourself turning down invitations you would have accepted a year ago, choosing a quiet evening over a crowded one, feeling less need for validation from people who used to shape your entire sense of self-worth. This is not you becoming cold or disconnected. This is you disconnecting from external noise so you can finally reconnect with your internal voice, the one that's been trying to speak clearly for a long time underneath everything else. Silence, in this sense, becomes less about being alone and more about finally being with yourself. And it's in that silence that most people finally hear the truth they've been avoiding. Which brings us to the final sign, the one this entire video has been building toward. Here is the truth almost nobody says out loud, even though almost everyone feels it. You already know. You knew before you started watching this video. You knew weeks ago, maybe months ago, in a quiet, wordless part of yourself that you've been talking over with logic, responsibility, fear, and habit. Somewhere inside you, there is a settled, quiet knowing that a certain chapter of your life is finished. Not failing, not falling apart, just finished, complete, ready to be closed with respect, not resentment. This is different from the other 6 signs because it's not really a sign at all. It's the conclusion those signs were leading you toward. 6 felt like different rooms in the same house. This is the door. The hardest part of this realization isn't the knowing, it's the releasing of control that comes after it. Because once you admit, even quietly, even privately, that something is over, you can no longer pretend you don't know. You can no longer negotiate with the past, hoping if you just try a little harder, wait a little longer, explain yourself a little better, the old chapter will somehow still work. Letting go doesn't mean the past didn't matter. It means honoring what it gave you enough to stop asking it for things it can no longer provide. This is where grief and growth exist in the same breath. It's okay to mourn an old version of your life, even one you're choosing to leave. Endings deserve grief, even good ones, especially good ones. But underneath that grief is something quieter and steadier. Acceptance. Acceptance doesn't arrive as fireworks, it arrives as relief, a long exhale, a sentence forming in your mind that sounds something like, I don't have to carry this anymore. You are allowed to stop fighting for a life that has already told you, in 100 small ways, that it's over. You are allowed to choose the future instead of endlessly negotiating with the past. And that choice, not the moon, not fate, not timing, is the real threshold you're standing on tonight. If you've made it this far, and something in this video feels like it was speaking directly to you, write these words in the comments. I am ready for my next chapter. Not for us, for you. Let it be a small, honest declaration, the kind only you will fully understand. Remember the beginning of this video, the moment right before something ends, when you don't see it happening, you feel it. That feeling has a name now. It's not a warning. It's not bad luck. It's not something to fear. It's the quiet, undeniable sensation of your own life finishing one sentence so it can begin another. The full moon rising tonight isn't going to change your life for you. It never was going to. But symbolically, it offers something valuable. A pause. A moment of illumination, where everything you've been sensing in the dark becomes a little easier to see clearly. So here is what we're asking you to do, gently, before this night is over. Choose one thing. Just one. An old identity you've been performing out of habit. A relationship that no longer fits who you've become. A fear you've been quietly negotiating with for years. A version of yourself you're finally ready to release. You don't have to fix your whole life tonight. You just have to stop pretending you don't already know what needs to end. Somewhere out there, right now, someone you know is standing at the exact same threshold you are, sensing an ending they haven't said out loud yet. If this video found you at the right moment, maybe it's meant to find them too. Share it with them. Sometimes the most meaningful thing you can give someone is permission to admit what they already know. Your old life isn't ending because something went wrong. It's ending because you finally outgrew it. And under this full moon, and everyone after it, that's not something to fear. That's something to walk toward, slowly, honestly, and completely on your own 2 feet, toward whatever comes next. Because endings were never really the opposite of beginnings. They were always the beginning, wearing a different name.